Okay, Mr. Williams, we're ready to go.
Okay, I would like to call the November 18th, 2020 meeting of the Board of Education to order. Will the secretary to the board please call the roll?
Aranda,
Here.
Daniels,
Here.
Franchidakis,
Here.
Lang,
Here.
Ruffalo,
Here.
Towns,
Here.
Williams.
Here. Mr. Wortman, would you please lead the audience in the pledge?
I will. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of
of
the
the
United
States of America
And
to the republic
for
which
which
it
stands
stands one nation,
under God,
God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
all. Thank you. And at this point, I'm going to turn the meeting over briefly to Superintendent Langton.
Thank you, Mr. Williams, and thank you to the members of the Board of Education. Just to inform our public, November 15th of every year is designated as School Board Members Day in Illinois. Since the 15th this year fell on last Sunday, I want to take the opportunity to celebrate our Board of Education members this evening. Although our ability to celebrate looks a little bit different this year than it did 1 year ago, I still would like us to recognize the selfless commitment and hard work of our 7 members of the Addison School District 4 Board of Education. Collectively, they represent 83 years of service as members of the Board of Education. Mr. Aranda joined the board 4 years ago. Mr. Daniels has served the board for 13 years since 2007. Mr. Franchidakis has served the board for 3 years. Mr. Lang has been with us for the past 7 years. Mr. Ruffalo has served for the last 15 years, and Mr. Towns has served our community for the last 20 years. And Mr. Williams, as board president, he has served the school district for 21 years after previously actually serving as a member of the High School District 88 Board of Education as well. While I sometimes joke that it can be tricky reporting to 7 bosses, I also seriously recognize and appreciate their trust in the work that all of us do to support the children of the Addison community. The diverse backgrounds and life experiences of our 7 board members contribute to our ability to make decisions that benefit the community and our students. Our board members serve as a valuable resource and are proactive stewards of the school district's resources and our responsibilities. So thank you to our 7 Addison School District 4 Board of Education members for their continuous commitment to the Addison community. I'd also like to offer a special thank you to Carolyn Stelter, our board secretary, for putting together the board member appreciation gift bags for you and then dropping them off with you this afternoon. So thank you again to our board members. And that is all, Mr. Williams.
Okay, thank you to you and Carolyn for putting that together. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we're down to our first action item. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of October 28th, 2020?
So moved.
Motion by Jeremiah,
Second.
second by, who was that, Zach?
Zach. Yep.
Questions or discussion? Roll call, please.
Aranda,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Franchidakis,
Yes.
Lang,
Yes.
Ruffalo,
Yes.
Towns,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes, motion approved. Is there a motion to approve the accounts payable for the month of November 2020 as follows? Education Fund, $1,066,072.25. Operations and Maintenance, $248,967.36. Debt Fund, 0. Transportation, $110,599.83. Municipal Retirement Social Security Fund, $42,586.16. Capital Projects Fund, $724,809.86. Working cash, 0. Student activity, $2,049.49 for a total of $2,195,084.94. I need a motion, please.
So moved by Serge.
Second, Rudy.
Motion by Serge, second by Rudy. Questions or discussion? Roll call, please.
Daniels,
Yes.
Frangidakis,
Yes.
Lang,
Yes.
Ruffalo,
Yes.
Towns,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Aranda.
Yes.
Motion approved. Is there a motion to approve the payroll for the month of October 2020 as follows? Education Fund, $2,437,153.20. Building Fund, $50,118.90. Transportation, $2,984.02. For a total of $2,490,256.12. I need a motion, please.
So moved. Jeremiah.
Motion by Jeremiah,
Second, Rudy.
second by Rudy. Questions or discussion? Roll call, please.
Frangidakis,
Yes.
Lang,
Yes.
Ruffalo,
Yes.
Towns,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Aranda,
Yes.
Daniels.
Yes.
Motion approved. I have not received any blue cards on agenda items this evening. We're down to committee reports. There was an intergovernmental meeting on November 5th and a buildings and grounds meeting this past Monday on November 16th. And Mr. Ruffalo will report on both of those.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. I'll start on the intergovernmental meeting. Some of the high notes on the meeting. The Edison Fire Department announced that they will receive their new ambulance in March. The library board, I'm sorry, my phone, thought it was, shame on me. The library did discuss that they have a survey being put out by the Northern Illinois University in regards to helping them develop a strategic plan. Addison Trail High School reported that the 2020 Illinois School Report Card is in, and they were pleased to report that they are above state level on freshmen to stay on track to graduate. They also did discuss their veterans program that went very well. Usually do it in person, but this year they did some things like had lawn signs and the student council put together t-shirts for them. So that went very well. The Village of Addison reported that they are working on developing COVID essential kits to help community members out. They also were sad to report that they had to cancel the mayor's charity ball, but they did announce that they're going to have their first Christmas parade. I believe it's on December 5th. With Santa visiting neighborhoods with the help of the fire department. Some of the other things they discussed were they're going to do a virtual tree lighting that same December 5th, I believe at 7:30. And then a couple of brief reports or comments about the enclave. It's just very noisy around here. Sorry about that. 34 of 44 lots are under permit. And in phase 2, I believe 43 lots are going to be proposed. I'm not really sure what kind of housing, but you can check into that with the village. And then they did say that Amazon is planning on building a distribution center of about 190,000 square feet somewhere in the vicinity of Lake and Swift Avenue. And finally, the Addison Park District did say that they will be shutting down Club Fitness every third weekend for some deep cleaning, but hopefully, and I know plans obviously have changed in the last few days, but hopefully can try to get the community back on some kind of what we'll call a normal schedule as far as all the entities really had that to say. And that is a quick report on the intergovernmental side. Should I move right into my buildings and grounds?
Yes, sir.
Okay, let's fire that up. So I'll try to be brief with this one. Also, we did meet the other day. Good news is our capital improvement projects for 2019 are pretty much, we're almost closed out with some retainage money still out there, but most of the projects we can finally say for 2019 are complete and we're satisfied. 2020 project update. There are some punch list items that are being addressed. Some that might be noticed if you're in the building at Indian Trail. There were some floor tile issues along the main gym, I guess we'll call it. But the contractor is coming in and resolving the issues at no cost to the district. A couple of questions that we brought up being the B&G committee were plumbing related. We know at Indian Trail those issues have been resolved, and some of the issues at the ELC, we believe also that those issues will be resolved. And then moving on to our facilities department update, they have been quite, I want to move back real quick. The 2021 projects, I apologize. The bid results did come in. We had an average of about 7 bidders per bid package, and we had 5 packages, and the numbers came in favorably. So we're pleased about that. And that's one reason why we worked really hard to get our projects on the street. So contractors will take a good solid look at them and sharpen their pencils. So we'll see how that goes. Now moving to our facilities department. They've also been very busy. Some of the projects that we are still at least trying to take care of are mostly safety, security issues related. You know, our lighting projects are ongoing. You've noticed some changes, but there's many more to come. Right now, they are concentrating on retrofitting current fixtures and trying to find LED lighting that would work well for our schools and some of the issues that we have with different power supplies and things like that. But we will be continuing not only with the swap outs, but additions in some areas. But seeing that we're a big district, we have many areas that will be addressed, but you will notice more and more that lighting around our schools exterior wise should get better and be way, way more efficient. Some other things you might have noticed, since the weather had been pretty good the last few weeks, our maintenance guys were able to get out to Wesley and Lincoln schools and did some playground painting, encouraging social distancing at play. So that's kind of a neat new thing for us, and I understand that's going well. And then one other thing to note is they constantly have meetings with our staff and ABM staff, our maintenance folks, in regards to disinfecting schools, working with our sprayers, our misters, training deployment, keeping a log. And I believe they're meeting at least twice a day, regardless, to have discussions to make sure we're staying on top of things. I believe that's it. If any of the other board members want to add or correct me on some of these things, feel free.
Well, I would just want to add the fact that when Ms. Ruffalo mentioned about the bids coming in at fairly decent prices, we're going to be spending less than half of what we spent in the last couple of years, right? According to my memory, right, Ms. Ruffalo?
That's pretty much right there, Mr. Williams. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the board members or comments? Okay, thank you very much. We're down to administrative reports. Superintendent Langton.
Yes, sir. We did have the Illinois Association of School Boards DuPage Division meeting last week, and thank you to Mr. Williams for attending and representing our board at that fall division meeting. That was on November 4th. The business meeting included presentations by 5 different DuPage school districts, elementary, unit, and high school districts, based on their experiences this past fall implementing remote and in-person learning. We were very pleased with the presentation and appreciated that it highlighted many of the collaborations across school districts with the DuPage County Health Department, the LEND organization, which we are a member, and also with the DuPage Regional Office of Education. Mr. Williams, is there anything else that you'd add about regarding that meeting?
Just the fact that we, like you stated, presentations from 5 different superintendents, 5 different school districts with totally different approaches to how we're handling this thing with COVID and remote learning and everything. We've had parents and teachers point at other school districts and say, well, what about this district? And what about that district? And things like that. And here you've got 5 superintendents and they didn't agree really too much on anything as far as their approach. So I just wanted to state that.
Yeah, I think it was representative of the fact that every community is different. Every community's experiences are different and their resources are different as well. So, but I thought all 5 school districts did a nice job of presenting how they're responding to their community's needs.
Right.
I also wanted to provide the board and our community with an update on the COVID activity with our employees and our students in our schools. So we have had, of course, students and staff who have tested positive, have had close contact. Since I can tell you cumulative numbers since September 1st of this year. So basically since we've had a school back in session, whether it was remote or in hybrid, we've had a total of 32 staff members test positive, and this is across all 9 schools. And we've had 94 staff close contacts. And then we've had 33 students test positive and 42 students that are considered close contacts. Now, I will share also that the close contact numbers with students is absolutely not an accurate number, which is kind of concerning because there's no way for us to completely have an accurate number unless parents report to us. The other piece about the student data that is important to note, and not just on what I'm sharing with you this evening, but even when you see this data in the news or through the county health department, the student data that's reported is cumulative and doesn't differentiate between students who are in person or students who are fully remote at home. So we are required, and we will continue to be required to report cases, close contact cases and positive tests to the DuPage County Health Department moving forward, really indefinitely until the virus is no longer a pandemic public health concern. I will share also that fortunately, our students and employees generally have been following the guidelines within our schools. And that's good because it's resulted in only a few cases where we've actually had transmission. And those individuals where we have had transmission, unfortunately didn't follow the guidelines. So, and the guideline basically is within 6 feet of each other for longer than 15 minutes cumulative in a 24-hour period. That's the CDC guideline. So it is critical that all employees and students or parents and guardians of our students continue to contact us regarding symptoms, close contacts, and positive COVID-19 results. Because as I said earlier, we are required to update the DuPage County Health Department on this information. And also that information is going to inform all of our decisions moving forward for returning to in-person learning. So that data is important for everybody to share. Finally, I also just wanted to briefly comment, and then Mrs. Haney will be following up on our remote to full remote learning, a return to full remote learning. We notified all parents and guardians and employees last Thursday that our school district will switch to full remote learning for the 3 weeks between the Thanksgiving holiday week and our winter break. Our goal is to return to hybrid in-person learning on January 5th. As I said, Mrs. Haney will share more information and additional pieces regarding remote learning expectations and guidelines that have been shared with employees and the parents of our students. And then finally, I just wanted to note that we did have 3 Freedom of Information requests. Those are the ones that you've seen through my weekly memo to you, and they're also included in this report. And that is all that I have. Are there any questions?
John, I have a question. In terms of return to school, what are the plans for looking at what the public health numbers are at that point? Because I really feel like if they're not any better than they are now, I really think we should, reconsider.
Yeah. So, and thank you, Mr. Frangidakis. I think that's a very good question, and it's one that I've had a lot of people ask me. So if you recall, even as recent as a week and a half ago, the numbers have not been good across DuPage County and certainly across the state and the nation. But more locally, even though several weeks ago, the county health department placed DuPage County into the substantial transmission category, which is that red category, we were still able to keep kids in person because the number of kids that were in person are very low. So, and I've reviewed this before, but I think it's important to restate, our in-person hybrid numbers, even if they were at the full numbers that originally were signed up for by parents, which they certainly have dwindled in the last few weeks, but even when they were at the full numbers, it was about 42% total, and then you divide that into two different cohorts of students. You're never dealing with more than 20 to 24% of your students at really any given time. And there's a few schools, a few classes that are higher or lower than that. But the numbers are very manageable, which, as I said earlier, that's why we have been able to keep our schools to be very safe places. It is well known, and the health department fully supports this, when people wear masks, when they maintain 6-foot distances, when they wash their hands, and they're mindful of their behaviors, the risk of transmission is next to nothing. It's very low. So I definitely, as I've repeated, I have continued to monitor all that public health data. But the reason that I made this decision last week to have us go full remote for those 3 weeks, it is purely a staffing decision. Because even today, our numbers, and I review the numbers with Mr. Wortman and Ms. Cartman every couple of days to make sure that I have a good sense for where the activity in our buildings is. Our numbers are basically staying pretty level as far as the occurrences. But the best news of all, the transmission is happening outside of our schools. And that's because when people are in our schools and they follow our guidelines, there's a very low risk for transmission. So I feel the most important data that I need to be mindful of is what that activity with our employees and our students is. And that's why I said earlier, it's really important that even during remote learning, or even during Thanksgiving week or the winter break weeks, if we have positive cases, our employees and our parents and guardians of our kids, they need to report that. And we have pushed out information to our parents. We have a COVID hotline number that they call, and it is going to be staffed continuously by one of our nurses who is going to take that information, and we're going to document it, certainly with the DuPage County Health Department, but we're also going to be regularly briefed on that, so that if we get into a couple of weeks into December and these numbers have not improved and we're going to have staffing issues to return on January 5th, I may have to make a decision to continue full remote learning. But we're not going to know that now. We have no idea for sure right now. What I can tell you is if we have operational issues and I can't safely reopen our schools to in-person hybrid learning, I would not do that because that's not safe for our kids and our employees.
I think another thing we should consider is, as much as we try to control our environment in the buildings, what we can't control is what happens outside of our buildings. And we know people are going to travel for the holidays and spend time with friends and family. We also need to be mindful of the fact that of giving some sort of a time after the holidays, to kind of, if there is a potential, essentially I think of it as kind of like a cooling off period where, people are going to travel for the holidays, and giving some time after the holidays to kind of see where the numbers are going.
Well, This is not an absolute date, Zach. It's a target date. That's all it is.
It's a goal. Yeah, and I agree with the point that you're making. That does worry me. I'm very worried about the Thanksgiving holiday, and then I am then again going to be worried over that Christmas holiday and New Year's, people not behaving themselves. And the good news is we will have a better sense for what that community transmission data looks like, both for our community, DuPage County, the state, as we get into later or mid-December and even into later December. And I think that's going to paint a very clear picture. So my commitment to our community and certainly to our Board of Education is to continuously monitor all of this data so that we can make the right decisions to make sure that our students and our employees are safe.
John,
Thanks.
I
Yeah.
just want to say that I think you and your team have done a fantastic job for our community, for our employees, for our students of really taking the time to go over this and do what's right. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you,
Yes,
Mr.
thank you.
Towns.
Thank you.
And I do want to highlight not only our school principals, because they're on a daily basis troubleshooting and making sure that our facilities can accommodate our kids and our employees, but I also want to put out a big thank you to Mr. Wortman and Ms. Cartman for their literally 7 days a week. It's nonstop. Contact tracing, taking phone calls, taking emails, following up, reporting to the DuPage County Health Department. Their work has allowed us to keep our schools safe. And again, I'm not just saying that because Mr. Wortman's staring at me on the Zoom call, but I really do appreciate, because I've talked to them just about 7 days a week about new cases or cases that are improving. And that's allowed me to be able to make confident decisions. So thank you, Chuck and Carrie, for your hard work. Any other questions about my report?
Okay, thank you, Superintendent Langton. We're down to Mr. Keeley, our business report.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. I have a very, very brief report this evening, and I promise to stick to that, but I wanted to highlight the work of our custodial crew. It was mentioned earlier during Mr. Ruffalo's report on the B&G committee meeting, where we discussed the various strategies we're employing to make sure the buildings are safe and sanitized for our staff and students. Could not happen without Mr. Dirk, our facility director, as well as Armando Avina and the ABM crew. These are real essential workers, folks. We closed our offices, the state shut down. Our facilities and custodial teams showed up to work every single day throughout the entire pandemic and continue to do so. In fact, they're in our buildings right now, getting them prepared for tomorrow. So I just wanted to take the opportunity to recognize them and to mention that collaboratively, we've developed an annual custodial awards program that unfortunately was, we didn't have an actual event this year, but awards were presented by ABM, and we have some really nice awards certificates that we're going to be framing and putting up in the district office. But I want to recognize Patricia Escobar, who was the Customer Service Excellent Award winner, as well as our 2 Employees of the Year, who are Alicia Gomez and Maria Mondraga. Again, very short report, but wanted to use my time and really thank these folks who day in, day out come in. And we know that a thank you can only go so far with them. And we just appreciate them and couldn't be where we are without them. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Keeley. Any questions for Mr. Keeley? Okay, Mrs. Haney.
Thank you, everyone. As Mr. Langton shared earlier, a preparation for transition to full remote learning on Monday, September 30th is well underway. The plan is very, very similar to our fall return to school plan with a few minor changes. I have attached that for your review, and also to make sure that our parents and our families have clear communication. We did upload a presentation to our website, which again is attached for your review, and is also being communicated by principals through their regular communication with families. I did include in my report just hours of instruction, And we want to make sure that our families regularly check their school and district communications just for updated information. And Mr. Langton talked about that hotline for parents to call in so that we can continue to track and manage the cases in our district. So if parents or families have any questions, please feel free to reach out to your building principal or the district office. We have November 23rd is scheduled for our Institute Day. All staff will report to their home buildings, and we're going to allow them to participate in a variety of activities of their choice. So we know that they have a lot of planning to do to transition back to that full remote. They can spend some time doing that, working with their grade levels or departments. And then we do have some self-directed learning for our district resources that they can participate in. We also will have a virtual presentation from Dr. Jose Medina. He'll work with our EL staff, so that's our dual language teachers, our EL resource teachers, our bilingual interventionists, and do a little bit of professional development on the C6 framework. Our paraeducators, we realize they're supporting our students more than ever, and they will be working with our instructional specialists on technology integration skills. It's going to look a little bit different at every building depending on their needs, but that's where IS staff will focus their time on this day. I did attach the agenda for the day, and as usual, we always survey our staff after the Institute days just to see how it went and make sure that we're meeting their needs. So I just want to thank the EDC for their work to make this day a reality. It was a little bit of a different type of planning day and a little bit of a different approach, but I think it will meet the needs of our staff members during this time. So as you're aware, our literacy committee is in the process of piloting literacy resources. They're going to transition to the second resource after Thanksgiving break. And they've had training on the programs earlier this month. And they're really excited to begin implementation. So we're hoping to be able to take a look at both of the pilot programs in late winter or early spring to do a deep research and feedback. We always get feedback from teachers and students on the pilot so that we can make a recommendation to Mr. Langton and to all of you to adopt a resource for next school year. So I just wanted to thank the entire literacy committee team. We have some other teachers that we asked to join us with the pilot because we wanted to make sure that we had a good balance of representation. But it's been just with the shift in the way teaching and learning is happening, they've really had to put a lot of work into learning more about the resource and also implementing it in a different way. So I'm very appreciative of their dedication and commitment to making sure that we make a recommendation for a resource that really meets the needs of all of our students. Just update you on winter map testing. As you're aware, we did not test in the fall. We had some glitches on maps end, but we are going to try again in the winter for the winter benchmark period. Dr. Losi did reach out to NWEA and they kind of assured us that the glitches have all been resolved. And we've also reached out to some other districts that were able to implement later in the fall after the glitches were fixed and feel confident that we will be able to do it. So we're going to give it a try. This data is very critical because it is more difficult to collect assessment data that's reliable and valid. So we really would love for this round to work, and we're going to hope that it goes well because it really helps us make instructional decisions. So the map window runs from November 30th through December 11th, but we just actually pushed that back a little bit to give the teachers that week to transition back, and we'll start in the next week. At my December board report, I will update you on some of the state assessment requirements. It's very interesting, and we're still in the process of making sure that we have all the information we need, but I will update you on where we're at with those state assessments. Just to give you an update, Dr. Losi and I, we had an opportunity to present virtually with Sylvia Kowak from Leggett at the National Ed Spaces Conference. It was a very interesting experience. We were able to share the process used to develop the furniture standards that we've gone through and to also implement the furniture pilot. So it was very interesting and different to present virtually, but we were really excited and got great feedback. So that was a great opportunity for us. And just a reminder, next month that I will be presenting the school improvement plans from each building for your approval. I'm already getting those plans from principals. We always do go through a review process with the teaching and learning department to make sure that the goals that they choose are appropriate and align with our district goals as well. And again, this year, some of their plans will look very different just based on where we're at and the needs we have this year. And that's all I have.
Any questions for Mrs. Haney?
Yeah, Tom, I was curious, what do you see as the benefit of changing the schedule for full remote versus just sticking to the same schedule that we have right now?
So we did have we had a lot of conversations about that. And the thought was that more beneficial for our students to have that full day of instruction in contact with their teachers. I know that there are pros and cons to both of those models, but the decision was made to kind of shift back to that full remote learning model for the time being, for right now.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Lang, I think that can be re-emphasized with the success that teachers had with kids back in September before we shifted. And it would have been our preference to keep that full day of instruction when we went to the in-person hybrid. But everybody probably remembers, it's just impossible because of staffing, available of staff to cover all of those extra classes. We couldn't have done that. So we're pleased that we're able to go back to that full day for our students, even if it is just for 3 weeks. If it's more than 3 weeks, then that's an added bonus for kids.
John, with that being said, we still have the ability, if we need be, to extend like the winter break and then potentially make a in-person class at the end of the year, correct? I mean, we just would have to adjust the calendar.
Board of Education always has the right to be able to amend the calendar. That's correct.
Anything else under that topic? Okay, we're down to action items. Action item 6.01 has been removed from the agenda, and I'll turn over the rest of that to Superintendent Langton.
Thank you. And so our next action item is the approval of employment requests. I'm going to ask Mr. Wortman to go through those.
Thank you very much. So I am presenting to the Board of Education for approval this evening the employment request for the following people. Their names are also listed in your board docs, and they will be mentioned this evening. So the employment list includes, and they're all in the ESP personnel area. They include Nicole Stanford, Nayeli Ocampo, Eric Powell, and Vanessa Rodriguez. So I do recommend that these requests be approved this evening.
Is there a motion to approve the employment requests as presented?
So moved. Jeremiah. Rudy.
Motion by Jeremiah, second by Rudy. Questions or discussion? Roll call, please.
Lang,
Yes.
Ruffalo,
Yes.
Towns,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Aranda,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Frangakis.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Our next action item is the approval of the final 2020 tax levy. Mr. Keeley, could you review that, please?
Thank you very much. So yes, last month we presented you with a tentative look at our tax levy for the coming year. Unlike years past, we had as much information from the county assessor, or sorry, township assessor as we could get for the tentative. So there are no changes to the final levy from the documents that you saw last month. This is certainly the most important task I undertake every year, as 62% of the district's revenue comes through this tax levy. So as you can see in your board packet, this is the second step in a multi-step process. The board will review this recommendation, and then once the board president and secretary sign the numerous documents, I will deliver them to the county so that we can file our levy. As you can see in our board packet, we did not exceed the truth and taxation 105% threshold as outlined in PTEL. Therefore, a hearing was not required this evening. So it's a very straightforward process. Therefore, I recommend that the Board of Education approve the 2020 tax levy as presented.
Is there a motion to approve the final 2020 tax levy as presented?
A motion, Zach.
Second, Jeremiah.
Motion by Zach, second by Jeremiah. Questions or discussion? Roll call, please.
Towns,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Aranda,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Franchakis,
Yes.
Lang,
Yes.
Ruffalo.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Our next action item is the approval of the 2021 capital improvement bids, the contracts. Mr. Keeley.
Thank you, and I apologize. I should have mentioned this, and I made a big show of discussing it last month as well. But I do want to recognize their 2020 levy. There's $0 for bond and interest, so the district taxpayers will be seeing a reduction as a result of that. And it's always nice to see that we are quote unquote debt-free at the end of this current tax levy. At any rate, moving on. The 2021 capital improvements bid, as we have done the last 2 years, we work kind of on a continuous cycle. So we're finishing up the 2020 work, but we're designing that 2021 work. And that process started back in the spring with the Buildings and Grounds Committee. And to be honest, it started much earlier than that because we're always looking several years ahead. So with this summer construction, a couple of highlights we're looking at is the renovation of the Lake Park and Lincoln Library Learning Centers. Freshen those up and make them more like 21st century learning spaces. That's pretty exciting. And then another major portion of scope is to replace the chiller plant at Indian Trail, which is at the end of its useful life. So that's going to result in better reliability and certainly significant energy savings. As Mr. Ruffalo mentioned earlier in his report, we did receive quite a few responses to each of our trade packages. So it was a really good turnout. I think going out early as one of the first school districts each year to do does help. And I think that the market is also favorable right now. The tabulations are in your packet. We had an extensive discussion with the B&G committee. So if there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer them, or Mr. Ruffalo can as well. Otherwise, I respectfully recommend the board approve the 2021 capital improvements project as presented.
Is there a motion to approve the 2021 capital improvement bid contracts as presented?
So move, Rudy. Second, John.
Motion by Rudy, second by John. Questions or discussion?
I got a question, Serge. Where are we at with the Indian Trail Library as far as planning with that? Is that happening next year?
Well, that's the hope that it can happen next year. We know it's going to be an extensive project, extensive and expensive. So we just got to see. We got to get through 2020, 2021.
Yeah, but
COVID.
Yeah, but by next year, you mean the year 2022?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, exactly. Thank you, Mr. Williams. So yeah, that, the reason we put Lincoln School and Lake Park School on the same track was because we knew those projects would be very similar. We also knew Lincoln School and Lake Park wouldn't be as much money as Indian Trail, and I think Lake Park was on the docket first. So we know we need to do quite a bit of improvements over at Indian Trail, and we don't want to skimp or lose out because, with the way the economy is right now, who knows what next year brings. And you can add to it, Tim, if you'd like. a little more eloquently, I'm sure.
Not at all, sir. No, that's perfect. I concur. And I think as we've discussed at the B&G level, and I think even with the whole board, that we're estimating the cost of the Indian Trail library, which would include, both floors and probably the adjacent hallways, to be north of $5 million. And for the sake of comparison, we're looking to stay between $4 and $6 million in hard cost each year. We're certainly well in that range this year. But when we're looking to commit an entire summer to one space, we're going to have to really make sure we're ready for it. And then, as Mr. Ruffalo alluded to, and Mr. Williams is always alluding to, we don't know what next year is going to bring in terms of finances with the state.
Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Williams,
Yes.
Aranda,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Franchakis,
Yes.
Ling,
Yes.
Ruffalo,
Yes.
Towns.
Yes.
Motion approved.
The next action item is the approval of the 2021 asbestos abatement contract. Mr. Keeley, can you review that?
Thank you. So the sister to the capital improvement projects each year is the environmental consultant's work to identify any hazardous materials that might be disturbed during the process. Obviously, as we discussed this with the B&G committee, these materials are encapsulated, they're safe until we start disturbing them through either demolition or renovation of some sort. So this year you have in front of you the scope that JMS Environmental, our longtime asbestos consultant, provided. It includes the removal of hazardous material in the basement, in the boiler rooms of Indian Trail, the ceiling of those boiler rooms, some heat tile in the band hallway. The band hallway is being renovated in 21. And then Fullerton room 14, there's a small amount of tile that needs to be removed for us to do some of the door frame work. At any rate, you have the full recommendation from JMS. They fully vetted the vendors, and the lowest responsible bidder came through and scoped out, and we are recommending that the board approve it as presented.
Is there a motion to approve the 2021 asbestos abatement contract as presented?
So moved, Jeremiah.
Second, Zach.
Motion by Jeremiah, second by Zach. Questions or discussion?
One day
Roll
our
call,
buildings-
please. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm just gonna say one day our buildings will have no asbestos.
It's at 99th percentile. We're just struggling to get through.
Yeah. Roll call, please.
Aranda,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Franchakis,
Yes.
Ling,
Yes.
Ruffalo,
Yes.
Towns,
Yes.
Williams.
Yes. Motion approved.
Our final action item for this evening is the acceptance of the 2019-2020 annual financial report. Mr. Keeley, could you review that, please?
Thank you very much. Yes, every year, our auditors, Klein Hall, who were recently purchased by Whitflea, performed that during the summer. And not to sound like a broken record, but COVID kind of threw that off a little bit this year. Typically in early June, we have them come in person and start their forensic work, and then they come back in early fall or autumn as it may be, and do their field work and finalize that. So they were not able to do any of that work until our fall date, and so they're still trying to catch up and trying to finalize. What you have before you is a draft of those documents. There will be no substantial changes to this in the final document. However, they did not have all of their formal letters and whatnot prepared, their opinion of the auditor, as they call it. That will be presented to the board as a discussion item next month for your information. But in order to meet our deadline of getting this to the ROE/state by December 15th deadline, we're bringing it to you this evening. There's a lot of information in there. Not a whole lot has changed. Certainly our fund balance decreased essentially by a factor of what our capital projects were last year. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. I'm pleased to say that You know, I think it's a testament. Mr. Langton opened the meeting talking about how long the board members have been on the board. I cannot take credit for the fact that we continue to have the highest recognition for financial stability from the state each year. That's been the case for many years here in Addison. And again, that's a testament to our board. So at any rate, I do request that the board approve the fiscal year 20 annual financial reports as presented.
So moved. Jeremiah.
Second, Serge.
Is there a motion to accept the 2019-2020 annual financial report as presented?
So moved. Well, sorry, you already asked, didn't you?
Well, he just did again. So second, Serge.
Okay. Motion by John, second by Serge. Questions or discussion?
Yeah, Tim, I'd just like to say thank you to you and to our excellent administrative team who have helped us stay fiscally responsible in my brief 20 years on the board. Thank you.
Any other comments? Roll call, please.
Daniels,
Yes.
Frandakis,
Yes.
Lang,
Yes.
Ruffalo,
Yes.
Towns,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes.
Aranda.
Yes.
Motion approved. We are now down to discussion items. Superintendent Langton.
Please remember that the next regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Education is scheduled for Wednesday, December 16th. And please note that is a 7:00 p.m. meeting. And we will have information regarding the format for that meeting, of course, based on the circumstances and conditions in our community in the state of Illinois. Also, I wanted to remind our board members that the annual Addison Town Hall, the Shape of Addison Town Hall meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, January 27th, 2021. That's the last Wednesday of January. And the format for that meeting will be forthcoming, but the village is still, thankfully, is still planning on hosting it. And I'm assuming that Mr. Williams will represent the board as the board president, and I will be there as well, participating. Mr. Wortman, could you please review the first reading of some board policy updates for us?
I can. Thank you very much. So the policy committee would like to present a first reading of Press Plus 105. If you take a look at the reading, the main focus is regarding Title IX or our sexual harassment protocols. So, and then many of the proposed changes with any other policy is as a result of the addition of this new policy. So we do want the Board of Education to please review the proposed changes and let the policy committee know if you have any questions. We would like to bring Press Plus 105 to an action item vote in December of 2020.
Any questions? Thank you, Mr. Wortman. Also, just to notify the board and the public, in accordance with board policy 2:220, Mr. Ruffalo and I will be reviewing and make recommendations regarding the declassification of closed session minutes, and that'll take place at the December board meeting. So if you have any questions regarding those minutes, which are attached in your packet, please let either of us know, and we will have that ready to go for the December meeting. And then also, as always, we have our monthly communications to and from the board using the electronic format, which is email, the district email. Those are all attached. Other than, I think there were 2 additional ones that we added today that the board had received, or any single board member had received, and then I responded to. So if you have any questions about those, please follow up with me. And Mr. Williams, that's all that I have for discussion items.
Hey, thank you. Presentation provides an opportunity on board agendas at each open meeting for comments from the public in accordance with board policy 2.23. In order to protect the rights of students, staff, or other individuals in Any item of a sensitive nature should not be presented in public, but should be communicated in writing to the district complaint manager. Board Policy 2.23 states that members of the public shall be permitted to make comments to the board at each open meeting, ordinarily subject to the following time limitations: 30 minutes overall, 15 minutes per topic, and 3 minutes per speaker. Generally, the Board of Education does not engage in dialogue during public comment. First blue card is from Kelly Mullins, who is an Addison resident. And the comment is, please close the schools to all students and staff for the rest of 2020. As a community member, I was shocked to discover we still had hybrid in place. Let's be glad the schools haven't become super spreader places and not push it. Continuing to put the staff and students at risk is unnecessary and contrary to all official advice. Addison deserves better. Please make the right decision. Amy Wildman, who's a staff member in our schools. Dear Mr. Langton and board members, thank you for doing what is best for our students and switching to remote learning for the rest of 2020. Not only will our students be safer, but they will also benefit from significantly more teacher instruction than they did under their hybrid schedule. I implore you to extend remote learning until the end of January and reassess at that time. In addition, I would like the board to consider allowing staff to have the option to work remotely in the safety of our homes. Even when the state has recommended that people stay home and not gather in groups over 10 in number, teachers and staff are expected to come to school with 40 to 100 staff members in the building. Please trust us. We are professionals. We can work from home, feel safe, and give our students a high-quality learning experience. Please give the teachers and staff of Addison School District 4 the option to work from home in this scary pandemic. Thank you for your consideration. The next blue card is from Maria Sincule. Dear Mr. Langton and members of the Board of Education, since the last time I spoke at the BOE meeting, our community members for COVID-19 have risen significantly. Our community numbers, excuse me. More than 61,000 children in the US were diagnosed with COVID-19. Just in October, nearly 200,000 new child COVID cases were reported from October 1st till the 29th, and about 853,635 total child COVID cases reported, which represented 11.1% of all cases of pediatrics 2020. Current exposure data from IDPH demonstrates schools and workplaces were noted as the second and third highest risk settings for transmittable COVID from October 18th to 24th. IDPH reported 465,540 cases, including 10,079 deaths in 102 counties in Illinois. DuPage is noted as one of the 75 counties that is noted at being the substantial level of transmission. During the week of November 1st through 7th, new cases per 100,000 cases count trend, weekly youth case count trend, and weekly positive rate have been on the rise and continue in the substantial level of transmission. While I commend the district for following Pritzker's current recommendations, I can't help to wonder why the delay and continuing to risk the lives of vulnerable populations in the community the last couple of weeks with the COVID on the rise. Addison's positivity rate and current cases of COVID continue towards an upward trend. While we remote in March during the first governor's orders, our numbers were not as elevated. And as a community, we were mitigating the spread. We need to continue to mitigate the spread and teach remote until our cases are below the recommended threshold recommended by IDPH and the governor. By continuing to promote hybrid, learning in the future when levels are in the substantial transmission, we continue to perpetuate the spread of virus. Although January seems far away, it will be sooner than expected. It is important to include local metrics when making database decisions when returning back to hybrid in January 2021. As stated in my previous letter dated October 21st, 2020, by prematurely opening schools, this advances the spread of COVID that could prove to be catastrophic to families. As soon as other parts of the world, a second wave has been associated with high community transmission and COVID rise in schools. Families who are already harder hit know the actual impact of the virus as on people's health. No one is safe from the virus. Cities and states that are in the safest position share commonalities such as transparency. Use the science-based leadership, utilizing distancing and mask rules and cooperating with these rules. As stated before, please consider incorporating transparency and science-based leadership when you consider hybrid in January. More importantly, please consider the racial inequities encountered by families in our community. Without transparency and racial equity in schools, BOE continues to jeopardize vulnerable populations. Lastly, please consider including a dashboard on the district website to provide the community with transparency. Our last blue card is from Janelle Bledsoe, excuse me, who is also a staff member here in the school district. Our students are returning to remote learning for 15 days. This is not enough to keep our students, staff, and community safe. Mr. Langton, you stated in your email that we are switching to full remote model due to staffing capacity. It is very disappointing that you have made no mention of switching to a full remote model for safety and precautionary measures as the COVID positivity, deaths, and hospitalizations skyrocket across the state and county. Addison's positivity rate is at 20%, and the new cases per 100,000 are 710.8. We cannot return to hybrid learning model on January 5th with metrics like this. A return date of January 5th leaves no time for quarantine period after holiday gatherings or travel for those of us who choose to do so. The district's mitigations only reduce the risk, but in no way prevent the spread of the virus. Students being in the building is not only risking physical health, but making a huge negative impact on mental health. Working in this type of environment places undue stress on staff. Some students coming to school are also scared of getting sick and are experiencing negative effects on their mental health because of the extreme differences in the school environment. Learning from the school building is risking our physical health and our mental health. We need to put both of these first and remain in full remote model until the metrics are in line with DuPage County Health Department guidelines. That's the end of the blue cards, and I'd like to thank everybody for their comments. Okay, is there any miscellaneous or unfinished business to bring before the board this evening? I did have a couple things. I participated in the Illinois Association of School Boards Delegate Assembly this past Saturday. We dealt with the mostly with the resolutions that had come out of the board or from school boards that the resolutions committee voted on. There were a couple of resolutions that were debated. They were defeated as per the recommendation of the resolutions committee, and I agreed with those votes. The board members will be getting an update, I'm sure, from Illinois Association of School Boards on that. A couple of weeks ago, I also participated again with Illinois Association of School Boards Zoom meeting on Open Meetings Act and how the guidelines have changed on open meetings because of the COVID situation. I was pleased that we are following all the new rules to the letter. And that's all I had. Anybody else from the board?
I have a question for John. John, are you aware of any thresholds that have been established by the governor or IDPH that says, you know, that if something goes beyond a certain point, that schools should be in full remote learning?
Mr. Frangiotakis, thank you for asking for that clarification. Absolutely, neither the governor nor the IDPH have established any thresholds. As a matter of fact, to the contrary, they have clearly stated and restated. In fact, you're even seeing it in the news right now when they talk about the tier 3 mitigations, that they do not apply to schools. So they're encouraging schools to make sure that our environments are safe and to make local decisions that are appropriate for your communities. And that's basically what the guidance is.
Thanks.
Yes.
Okay, is there anything else? Okay, is there a motion to adjourn the Wednesday, November 18th, 2020 meeting of the Board of Education?
Motion.
Second.
Second.
Motioned and seconded. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Frangiotakis,
Yes.
Lang,
Yes.
Ruffalo,
Yes.
Towns,
Yes.
Williams,
Yes,
Aranda,
Yes.
Daniels.
Yes.
motion approved and meeting adjourned. Thank you for participating tonight.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.